What actor plays the same character in every movie? Jason Statham, tough Brit who doesn't take from anyone. Usually involves smacking some heads together. Except in Snatch, where he plays a wannabe where almost everyone else is a harder, scarier criminal than he is. Same with Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. Seems to only be an action star these days. I liked him better back then. Guy Ritchie needs to make him a new movie. He has a new one coming out with him. I'll have to look that up on IMDb. You know the title yet? Wrath of Man. But he plays the same tough action guy again anyway. Steven Seagal. Yep. Arrogant jerk is a character. I worked with him on my first movie, The Onion Movie. He was asked to play a character called the Puncher, an action hero who defeats bad guys by, you guessed it, punching them. He said he'd agree to do the movie on two conditions, that they write him a soliloquy where he talks about the importance of non-violence, and that he be surrounded by a bevy of models at all time. The director's response? Yes. He was indeed awful to work with, late to arrive to the set, and impatient with the crew when he was there. When it came time for me to do my coverage, the part of our scene where I am talking to him, but the camera is only on me, he decided to take a break, and they had to have someone stand in as him for me to talk to. That ended up being a relief, because the stand-in was more present than Seagal was. Anyway, I actually enjoyed the experience, because it was my first movie, and I thought all my future co-stars will be better than this. Said it while I'm so delighted and surprised to see so many Onion movie fans on here. Thanks so much for the kind words, folks. This made my day. By the way guys, if you are enjoying this video so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It will help us out quite a bit, and if you don't enjoy the videos in the future anymore, you can always unsubscribe. Let's get back to the video. Kevin Hart. Literally every movie. I like that movie where Kevin Hart played his Kevin Hart character and Will Ferrell played his Will Ferrell character. Better yet, have Face Off 2 where Kevin Hart has to play Will Ferrell and Will Ferrell has to play Kevin Hart. Don't even change the skin color, just have everyone wonder why Will Ferrell's character is walking around with blackface. That sounds surprisingly bankable. If they do that movie then they owe you a check 10 to 15 years ago, for sure. Today, probably can't get away with Will Ferrell doing blackface for the majority of the movie. They could make it so ridiculous that it's funny. Like Team America bad, but everyone around them believes their new identities are legitimate. They could do it in a tasteful comedic way, and it would only work if Kevin Hart was in the movie too. Tropic Thunder White Chicks. Both have proved that there is a way to do comedy that offends no one but the subjects. John Wayne. The Mongolian Cowboy. They filmed The Conqueror, 1955, in Nevada soon after there had been a bomb testing nearby. 91 of the crew later got and 46 died from it. That movie was cursed. I remember reading somewhere that they even trucked in loads of the radioactive sand into the studio to make the studio shots look the same as the outside shots. Such a tragedy, and all around one of the worst films ever made. Everyone, not just the crew. Eventually Wayne himself succumbed to it in 1970s. The Duke smoked more than 2 packs a day, sometimes up to 5. Dude was gonna lose a lung and die from no matter what. In the past 10 years worth of films, Liam Neeson. After the death of his wife in 2009 he said that these actions movies was the only kind of movies that he was comfortable with, but now 10 years later he said he is done with these movies and he just did Made in Italy. Incidentally, one movie where he's a rather different character, Love, Actually, he's a recently widowed stepfather. And a brilliant one at that. He also did a movie called Kimsey about based on the real life of the guy who used the scientific method to classify. Michelle Rodriguez. The bad girl who beats up dudes role. She opened up about being typecast and had this to say, I was typecast the minute I did a film called Jill Fight years ago. She went on to say, you allow yourself to be typecast. If I decided I didn't want to be typecast tomorrow, I'd just go do an indie film where I play some poor girl who goes through some excruciating experience and win myself an award for crying or being or playing someone with mental illness. Can't argue with that. Danny Trejo. Don't get me wrong, I think he bring a lot to pretty much anything I've seen him in, but he is always that bad guy who gets killed. But damn, had he had some cool action sequences. Mr. Diaz. Can't say I've seen anything from Danny Trejo, apart from B99 where he's a really cool and understanding dad. I liked the complexity of him playing a dad who was a bigot being confronted by his daughter directly and coming to terms that his worldview was flawed and coming back to apologize and reconcile with her. He played it very well. Another example, kind of, would be A Very Harold and Humor Christmas, in which Danny Trejo plays Harold's John Cho, father-in-law, who disapproves of his daughter's choice of husband despite Harold being the freaking best and going out of his way to accommodate Danny Trejo and the rest of his wife's family while they stay during the Christmas season because they can, because Harold is so loaded by the start of H&K3 that he can afford like an actual house in the New York City. Kevin Hart and The Rock. My favorite movie of theirs is when Kevin plays short funny man and The Rock plays his muscly friend. I'm surprised they haven't made a remake of Twins yet. They could even have Arnold and Danny DeVito make cameo appearances. An idea is born. I can imagine The Rock getting all excited and running into Kevin Hart's home office and Kevin just listening with a stern look on his face before saying, "You want me to be DeVito?" The movie should be The Rock and Kevin Hart discussing creating a sequel to Twins and a 15-minute Twins at the end with the premiere and some hijinks outside the movie, like a crazed Arnold and DeVito and Eddie Murphy trying to stop the premiere. Charlie Day. He always plays an anxious weirdo on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and he never fails to entertain. Charlie Day was like Bobcat Goldthwait or Gilbert Gottfried for me. I wondered, are they always like that? I saw an interview forever ago with Gilbert Gottfried where they asked him who he'd least like to sit next to on a plane, Bobcat Goldthwait, Pauly Shore, or himself. His answer was Pauly Shore. Bobcat and I only do it when we are working. I've been around Gilbert Gottfried when he's not on. He seems like a pretty normal, soft-spoken, older Jewish man from Brooklyn. Back when the Howard Stern show was good, they played a voicemail that Gilbert left for Baba Booey. He was using his normal voice to discuss an upcoming appearance. It was quite odd to hear for the first time. I had the inverse experience listening to a recording of a live show of AC/DC, and after the song the lead singer, I don't know enough about AC/DC to know which vocalist is which, starts just talking to the audience and I realized, oh, I guess that's just his voice, not a singing affectation. I remember reading that scene Bean dies in everything he appears in because it's the universe's way of balancing out the fact that his name doesn't rhyme. Now it's balancing out his role in Sharp. He goes gallivanting across Spain and France stabbing French men and shagging every woman between Lisbon and Paris. He survived being shot about 1,000 times and so now, to balance things out, he dies about 1 hour into every film he's in. Sharp was a pretty cool show. Or were they each a movie? A series of made-for-TV movies, there's around 10 of them all about 90 minutes long. They were based on the Sharp novels. Those books were dope. That's actually super weird. We don't like that in the US. Close street thing I can think of is like Masterpiece Theater / Classic / whatever it is now, but even then it's pretty much always just a series and it's usually not even American, even though it's on PBS. Hector. I love that this isn't even his real name and we all know who it is. Yes. My friends and I used to talk about Hector all the time. What a legend. Glad this wasn't a one-off occurrence. I have no idea who they are talking about. I'm not the only one. Noel Guglielmi, he plays a guy called Hector in several different movies and even when the character isn't called Hector they're basically the same character as Hector. Dwayne Johnson. I imagine the conversations for his role are something like this. The Rock. So what role am I going to play? Director, well we thought. Rock, it doesn't matter what role I'm going to play. I really like that. No matter what movie The Rock is in, be it cutesy family funny or blockbuster action movie, his character will always without fail be an ex-special forces guy, because it's the only way they can ever justify his massive jigger frame. In Rampage he plays a animal behavior scientist with a special forces background, yeah. In Skyscraper he's supposed to be a mild-mannered security consultant, an everyman like Bruce Willis in Die Hard. Only the movie physically can't figure out how mild-mannered security man would look like. He bench presses trucks for a living, so the opening has a random Rainbow Six Siege Special Forces segment. It always makes me chuckle. Part of me just wants to see a movie where they're just like he got that jacked because he wanted to impress girls. Still doesn't work though. Jeff Goldblum. He basically just plays himself, which isn't an issue. I love himself. I'm convinced he had no idea what he was filming during Thor Ragnarok and was just told to react to things happening around him in his own special way. There's a deleted scene of him dancing and all I'm wondering is how they convinced him to do it. I'm more curious how they got him to stop. That was actually the last shoot. They had some more scenes they wanted to get in, but when he wouldn't stop dancing they just left him there. His next movie will be just dancing as the set is slowly changed around him. Jeff Goldblum dancing in the middle of a stage while the set changes around him and people act like he isn't even there. I would watch that. Ryan Reynolds has made a career of being the wisecracking quick-witted quipper. He's literally Deadpool in every movie now, just sans the uber violence, mutant abilities and fourth wall breaking. That's not a complaint, just the niche he has been able to very successfully embrace. I think he's been playing that guy since Two Guys, a Girl and a Pizza Place. I think, maybe, my memory is a bit hazy though. Maybe I should rewatch it to check. You are correct. He has basically been playing Berg from Two Guys, a Girl and a Pizza Place, in everything. My sister is a casual fan of Marvel movies and thought Clark Gregg was just being typecast as an agent in every movie. He's an FBI agent on the West Wing. He was actually really funny on New Adventures of Old Christine, and not an uptight government agent. That was actually the first thing I saw him in, so watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. now I always see him as a comedy actor. What do you think of AOS? We're on season 3, I think, and liking it. My girls and I have always gone to all the Marvel movies, and after WandaVision figured we'd give this a try. We haven't had cable for many years, so I guess it's why we'd overlooked it this long. Seth Rogen. I once saw someone point out that Seth Rogen and James Franco play themselves in every movie they are in, except for Pineapple Express where they play each other. Interest fact, they were supposed to play the opposite characters. Seth was going to be the drug dealer and he contacted James to play the typical leading man role. But Franco read the script and felt like he'd rather play the dealer. Seth was cool with it because it meant he'd get the lead role and it obviously worked to perfection. Anna Kendrick, it's like every movie she plays she has the same personality. Quirky, funny, and not too serious, same look too. I thought she was very good in 50 Over 50, but now I can't remember if she's like that in all her movies or not. I think 50 Over 50 was the light version of all her other characters. Still a little quirky, though that might just be the actress mannerisms, but more serious than her other roles. She did play a pretty convincing predator. You're not supposed to sleep with patients. Well, technically we didn't see them sleep together at any point. They do go on a date after his surgery, so maybe she's in the clear. However, he did offer to make her pancakes and you don't make pancakes for any old therapist. Diane Keaton. For the last 20 years, at least, her performance and wardrobe has been almost identical in every movie. Yes. Jennifer Aniston always has the same hair and wardrobe too. I'll go so far as to say Diane Keaton is that kinda you belong in the 70s and anything outside of that you look like an alien from another planet. And even then, what the was that performance in The Godfather? Kay is one of the most bland characters in all of cinema history. That's the essence of Keaton's acting. Jane Lynch, but she does it well. You know what I used to eat for breakfast? You know what I used to eat for lunch? I'm not here to service your hours, I'm here to service these young boys. What did you eat for dinner? Was it my favorite part, you think I give if you two go to prison? I've been in prison. Oh, I have. A prison of and sick thoughts. I used to have sick thoughts. So don't preach to me about hours when you're standing over there and you're standing over there and I don't know which way is up. Stanley Rib. Excelsior. Whenever his name comes up I just have the fondest memories of meeting him at a con years and years back. He was the absolute sweetest dude, wasn't letting the photographers rush anyone through the line and just wanted to hear about you and your love for superheroes. I always wish I met him. I had the chance at one con a few years back, I think one of his last, but I was only going one day and was a bit busy. I just figured he'd be around forever. Later that year he announced he was cutting back his con visits. At least I got my Batman collection signed. Nicolas Cage invariably plays Nicolas Cage. There's two Nicolas Cages. There's the oh crap, I drunkenly bought a pyramid on eBay, I should take this role in Schindler's List too. Schindler's Fist Nicolas Cage, where he's phoning it in for the check, and then there's actually serious actor Cage who is really good. There's things like Leaving Las Vegas and adaptation in his filmography too. Just he spends money like crazy, so needs to keep taking roles he doesn't care about. When Nicolas Cage is on, he is on a whole other level. Adaptation. His character's inner dialogue is so much like mine that I can't watch the whole film in a single sitting. It is like he did a character study in my brain, swung by costume and makeup, and then told the director to go. The only difference is that I'm a woman. Kevin Costner plays Kevin Costner in all of his movies. Doesn't matter when or where they're set, the guy's delivery does not deviate from default Kevin Costner. As a historian, I'm a huge fan of Kevin Costner's westerns, and really, any period pieces made after Robin Hood. The guy goes out of his way to ensure everything is as accurate as possible. As a movie fan, I think Kevin Costner overestimates the acting range of Kevin Costner. Also, how have he and Harrison Ford never played brothers in a movie? You trying to tell me Kevin Costner's Robin Hood wasn't historically accurate? Right. Next you'll try to say that A Knight's Tale gets jousting all wrong. It was as accurate as Costner's English accent. Come on, it was brilliant. I mean, it came and went, but on at least one or two syllables he landed on an approximation of an English accent. Lol. Going to go for a potentially unpopular one and say, in films and TV at least, Benedict Cumberbatch you need a clever who doesn't work well with others outside of a small group and has a heightened sense of their own self-importance. Doctor Strange, Sherlock, Alan Turing, can. Even on stage his portrayal of Frankenstein and Hamlet fit this mold. Edit I forgot The Grinch, Assange, and Cummings. I don't think I've ever watched a movie with George Clooney in it where I've identified his character as anything other than George Clooney. Edit, I didn't answer Op's question accurately. Clooney plays different characters, but I never forget I'm watching him. He's still believable in every role, varying as they are, but he's always Clooney. As opposed to Tom Hanks, as someone below pointed out. Burn after reading, the American differs from his suave, self-assured, wisecracking self. I think he has two characters, both perfectly exemplified by the movies you listed. In the American he doesn't pull the wisecracks, but he's still suave and self-assured. The somewhat silliness of Burn after reading is also evident in A Brother. Not the same character of course, but the same mannerisms. Don't get me wrong, I love the guy and his movies. But George Clooney is just so damn George Clooney that I never forget I'm watching him. So what we've basically concluded is that there's regular George Clooney and Coen Brothers George Clooney. Charles Dance has been typecasted as the Magnificent. That's all he's been asked to do since Game of Thrones, Tywin Lannister. But while there will be many entries about generic roles, let me bring to your attention some specific and unusual roles with lengthy descriptions. Elizabeth Debicki. In The Night Manager she played a trophy wife with a heart of gold that stayed in the marriage for the love of his son and eventually falling for the protagonist. Then she starred in Tenet as a trophy wife with a heart of gold that stayed in the marriage for the love of his son and eventually falling for the protagonist. Now she's set to play Diana in The Crown, and while the description is not that precise, in the broad terms it could work. Victoria Pedretti. Both in The Haunting of Hill House and Love she's a twin sister that remains tragically a young widow. And her role in The Haunting of Bly Manor still involves a widowhood, just without a twin. So many terrible answers in this thread. So here's mine. Bruce Willis. Not earlier in his career, but the last 20 years have just been the same grumpy old trying to say as few lines as possible. I miss old Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis is basically retired for all intents and purposes. His quote is $1 million a day now, and every once in a while someone will pony up the cash to pay him, and he shows up and does the bare minimum because the money is literally too good to turn down. But you can tell his heart isn't really in it anymore, and he'd rather be anywhere else. To his credit, he's admitted this in interviews. He's not into action flicks anymore, but if they meet his fee he'll suck it up and show up. If anything, it seems like he's trying to deter people from pursuing him for those roles, but they gather the cash and he's like, well, fine. Harrison Ford seems very similar. There's numerous interviews where people have been like, did you feel drawn back to the insert franchise here? And he's just like, yep, they drew me back with a very large check. Or what made you change your mind and reprise the role? More money. Vince Vaughn. I still think it's hilarious he was Norman Bates in the Psycho remake. Till this day I can't forget the following moment. I worked in a video rental, we had both VHS and DVD, so you can probably guess the era. A woman waltzes in and wants to rent Psycho. I ask her which one, because we don't have the older one on DVD, only on VHS. She asks back if there is a newer one. I say, yes, they remade it a few years ago with, pause on my part, maybe Viggo Mortensen. She looks at me puzzled. Yes, that's the one she wants to rent. I decided not to speak after that, just lead her to the shelf with the DVD on it. I'm not seeing this one anywhere on the list, but Jack Black. I recently watched Tenacious D and had this itchy feeling that he was playing the same character from School of Rock. Even thought of a neat way to connect the movies together, that Jack Black never made it big as a rockstar, went to live with his brother, then decided to teach his rockstar ways to a group of kids, where he learned his true talents as an educator. I have to say School of Rock shaped my music taste as a kid and steered me towards what I listen to now. He just drops musical golden nuggets the whole time. Listen to the keyboard solo on Roundabout. It'll blow the classical music right out your Agreed. A lot of those bands he talks about in the movie happen to be some of my favorites. I can't believe no one has said Harrison Ford. I mean, I love the dude. But you can't tell me Indiana Jones and Han Solo aren't the same dude. He has some other roles that perhaps younger people may not be familiar with where he showed more range. The Fugitive, Regarding Henry, Working Girl, Witness, he was really the movie star of the late 80s/90s. Oh, you're totally right, he was great in The Fugitive. Definitely a great actor for his time, and I definition love Star Wars and Indiana Jones anyways, LMAO. This is the end of the video, thank you guys for staying with me till the end. If you enjoyed watching this, you might as well watch these too.